called the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Now you may wonder, why is Jesus called a lamb? Well, remember when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden? Remember, Jesus had to go ahead and he had to sacrifice one of his little lambs. That means he had to kill the little lamb to make them some clothes. And when he made them the clothes, he covered their sin, remember? But the sin wasn't gone, it was just covered. And so Jesus said, you know what? Until I die on the cross, I'm going to make a way to cover people's sin. And what they're going to do is they're going to sacrifice animals to me to remember what I did in the garden and to picture me coming in the future. And so, remember Noah? He got off of the ark. The first thing Noah did when he got off the ark was he built a little altar, a church, and he sacrificed a lamb because he was remembering what Jesus had done for him and that Jesus had saved him in the ark. And so, God started this practice of sacrificing animals to cover people's sin. Well, Abraham, remember, he had a son in his very old age. Abraham was how old when he had his son Isaac?
100.
He was 100. And you know what? Noah, that is awesome. And it took 25 years before God gave him that son. Because God was building in Abraham how to wait. Miss Yolanda calls patience waiting without complaining. And that's something we have to practice. We have to practice patience. And that's what Abraham was doing. He was practicing. God was making him practice how to believe and keep faith when things take a long time. Well, now Abraham's son, Isaac, he is a little bit older. He is a young man. And one day, God tells Abraham, Abraham, I want you to do something for me. He said, instead of sacrificing the lamb like you normally do, I want you to offer and sacrifice your son Isaac. That means God was asking Abraham to kill his son. Can you imagine? God wanted Abraham to kill his son. Well, Abraham, that made him sad, but guess what Abraham decided? He believed. Because he said, you know what? God made me a promise. He said that I was going to have so many sons, so many children like the stars of the earth, that I know that God, nothing is impossible with God. But I have to obey. So if I obey, I believe that somehow God is going to bring my son back to life. And so he believed that. So Abraham told his son, God said that we have to go up to the mountain and sacrifice. Well, this mountain wasn't any ordinary mountain. God said, Abraham, I want you to take your one and only son, the son that you love. Now, this is the first time that God used the word love in the Bible. He said, the son that you love, the one and only son, and I want you to sacrifice him on a very special mountain. And I'm going to tell you what mountain it is. It's Mount Moriah. Very special. It has to be this mountain. And so Abraham and Isaac, they obeyed. And so Abraham put the wood for the sacrifice on his son's back. And they started to climb up to the mountain. Now, Abraham had two servants that were going with him, and Abraham told the servants, you guys wait here. My son and I will be back. So Abraham believed. He said, I don't know how God's going to do it. God's telling me I have to kill my son on this mountain, but somehow he's going to bring him back to life, and the two of us are coming back. And so Abraham had that much faith. So they went up to the mountain, and Abraham believed God, and he put Abraham, his son, on an altar. And Abraham was going to, even though he was brokenhearted, he's like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And he got a knife, and he put it up above his son, and just about the time that he was going to bring the knife and sacrifice a son, Jesus from heaven said, Abraham, Abraham, stop! Stop! Don't do it! I want your son to live. He said, I was testing you. He goes, I was testing you to see, do you love me above all things? And he goes, and now I know, Abraham, that you love me above all things. And so he said, do not kill your son. He said, I will provide a sacrifice. And guess what? When Abraham looked in the bushes, there was a ram. There was a ram. That's a male sheep, a boy. He goes, there is the ram. I will be the sacrifice. And so Abraham was able to sacrifice the lamb and not his son. And that way God provided on that mountain. Now Now you may think, Miss Yolanda, why was God so specific about that mountain? Because a couple thousand years later, on that very mountain, there was going to be another man that was going to carry wood on his back. And guess what? Who was that man that was carrying the cross?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus had to go up that very same mountain. And he had to die on that. And Jesus became the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world on that same mountain. But Jesus wanted to see, does Abraham have enough faith to believe my word? And Abraham did. It says in the Bible that by faith Abraham believed that God would raise his son from the dead. And then Jesus said, now Abraham, I know that you love me above all else. Now I'm starting that family tree. He said, and I'm going to bless you. And I'm going to give you so many sons through Isaac that it's going to be like the stars in the sky. And so that's what Abraham got. He got a reward for obeying the Lord.